Welcome back to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, Trimboli, and with me, as always, is my co-host, the Mean Green Ogre Machine, Mr. James O'Reilly.
How's it going, buddy?
We're going. And each week we run down a movie from my 1,000 movies in theaters and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. And we have got a doozy of a movie tonight. Jim, what are we watching?
The animation powerhouse franchise starter, 2001's Shrek.
That's right. We are diving into the land far, far away as we dive into the movie Shrek, directed by Andrew Adamson and Vicky Jensen, written by possibly the greatest duo to ever put pen to paper, Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio, as well as Joe Stillman and Roger S.H. Schulman filling out the writing credits, and starring Mike Myers, Cameron Diaz, and Eddie Murphy. Now, we don't have the flap jacket behind the DVD this time to read off the back. My 4K is just a steelbook, Jim. It does not give any sweet writing on the back, so we had to turn.
Ooh, listen to fancy Mr. Steelbook over
I know,
here.
fancy Mr. Steelbook guy here with my collector's item. I do not have some good liner notes here, so we had to turn to the internet for this sweet little log line, but still nice and concise here. Shrek finds his home in his swamp, overrun by fairy tale creatures, banished by the obsessive ruler, Lord Farquaad. With the help of Donkey, Shrek makes a pact with Farquaad to rescue Princess Fiona in exchange for regaining control of his swamp. Two sentences right there. That's concise right there.
Yeah, and I mean that's great and all. I'm never, possibly never gonna forgive you for the puns that I missed out on. There
Yeah,
has to be some doozies on the back of Shrek, of some copy of Shrek on DVD somewhere that I will
yes.
probably never hear now. So thanks, I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
somewhere out there on the back. I'm sorry, Jim. It does not come with the steelbook. The steelbook is just some beautiful, beautiful collecting item. It does not have any of the goodies, unfortunately, for you this week.
No, that's okay. I mean, I you summed up the movie nicely, so I guess you did your job.
I did. I did. Leave it to the internet to give me a nice, concise plot line there for the movie
Yeah,
Shrek. This is a fun one. I was glad to dive back into this one. This one is kind of along the lines of a few other movies that we've done so far here on the podcast. The first one that comes to mind is X-Men, talking about like a franchise where this first one is not the one that I normally go to when I'm going to watch a Shrek movie. So it was
yeah,
fun to go back and watch the first one again, as I don't normally watch the first one. If I'm going to watch a Shrek movie, my first inclination is always to go to Shrek 2.
yeah, and that's over time. I don't think I realized how much I've melded the two movies together.
Really?
Because yeah, there was a lot of things that I was like excited for that I was like, oh wait, yeah, that's not in this movie. This movie is kind of just really short and to the point, and all that other stuff I'm thinking of is from a totally different Shrek. So yeah, no, I'm with you. I think Shrek 2 is kind of more my go-to as well.
Yeah, well, it also probably helps that that one came out right in the height of us in high school. So that was probably the one that we always gravitated towards because that was what, 2004? We were in ninth grade. It was right when we started going to the
Yeah,
movies together.
yeah, I love that we both agree that the animated children's movie that we saw in high school is the one that sticks with us and not the one we saw when we were like 11.
Yeah, right. The one when we were actually children. No, the one
You're
when we
right.
were teenagers where you normally wouldn't like animated movies. That's the one we were
Right,
all gung
right.
ho about.
I think it speaks volumes about our maturity at that time in our lives.
Going off of that, in my research for this was another one where I feel like I learned a lot of the times when we do these movies, a lot of the stuff that we're diving into is a lot of the stuff that I've already known about, and we're just kind of like bantering back and forth. But this was the one of the first times that I've really dived into a movie where it was throwing some things at me that I did not realize before and was wildly crazy. So one of the things, let me hear if you knew this. So I
Okay.
had no idea about this. So Shrek was the first movie since Peter Pan, Disney's Peter Pan that came out in 1953. The first
Yeah.
movie since that to debut at the Cannes Film Festival, where it competed for the Palme d'Or.
Oh wow, like the first animated movie you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, first animated movie since Peter Pan to compete for that, which is
Wow.
so insane. I like that
I did
you
not
think
know
of
that.
that and you think such like prestige filmmaking, and you're like, what kind of movies are we gonna see for the Palme d'Or this year? And they're like, oh, Shrek. You're like, what?
Yeah, even I think Disney had another movie that they debuted there also. I think they debuted Elemental, right?
Yeah, that's right. They did do Elemental
And
there, and it did not
even
go
even
well.
in even in 2023, hearing that I was like, really? Like Elemental? Like that's what they're doing there? So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's
and
crazy to me to hear that that happened all the way back in 2000,
and
2001.
animation has definitely come a long way where it is obviously a big deal and shouldn't just be treated as just, children's movies. But it still is such a weird thing to hear about of something of such magnitude and prestige level. And then in the same sentence, you're like, Shrek is competing.
Yeah, you know what would be interesting? What else debuted at Cannes
Yeah.
that year?
So the winner was this movie, The Sun's Room, which I've never even heard of.
I've never heard of that either.
Yeah. Never heard of that. But we got all right. Here we go. We got the official. So there's a lot of movies, so I'm not gonna say all of them, but we'll see if there's just any that
Yeah, I
sticks
mean,
out.
stick with the ones that we would probably know, I
Yeah.
guess, first,
So
right?
A Coen Brothers movie was there called The Man Who Wasn't There. It was a black and white movie with Billy Bob Thornton.
Okay.
Moulin Rouge was there.
Okay.
David Lynch's Mulholland Drive was there.
Okay. Yeah, see,
So
that's the kind of thing I'm looking for, where
yeah,
like
think of these.
at
Yeah,
that film festival you could have saw Mulholland Drive and then like saw Shrek.
and then Shrek.
Like
You could have done a double feature of Mulholland Drive and Shrek. And those are the big ones that like we would know. All these other ones are from different countries of movies that I've just never even heard of. But just
yeah.
insane to think that I can go see Moulin Rouge, Mulholland Drive, and Shrek all competing for one of the most prestigious awards in film.
Yeah, yeah. It definitely does not fit in my
Yeah.
brain anyway.
One of those movies is not like the other. This movie really created such a huge franchise. Obviously, when we were kids, you don't even realize it at the time, but it really became this huge culture. Like, Shrek is memed to death in today's culture. I can't go 5 minutes surfing through memes without seeing somebody with a Shrek meme. Like that's how big and relevant this movie, this franchise really has become in the zeitgeist these days. That however many years still removed from the last movie, it's still in contention with a lot of people today when talked about.
Yeah, and I mean, how many Shrek movies are they up to at this point? I mean, including like if you
So
count
there was four Shrek movies and
right,
two
with a
Puss
fifth
in
one in
Boots.
development right now, right?
Yeah, and a fifth one in development right now.
And
So
then there's two Puss in Boots,
two
so
Puss
that's
in Boots movies.
six going on seven.
Yeah. And that's not even like counting everything else that it's done, like books, video games, rides, musicals. There was a Shrek musical.
Yeah, I did. I
Did you
saw the
really?
Shrek musical. Yes, but I saw a local theater production of it.
Also, it wasn't even
So
like
it was
Broadway. You
like
saw like the
no, it wasn't professional at all.
oh
Like even I've
God.
seen some local ones that were like high quality. This was like in a park run by like local people and it was something.
That is amazing. It's so insane. I feel like that's when you really hit another level is when your movie becomes a Broadway play. I mean, it's more common now, but I feel like when Shrek did it and all that, it was crazy. Now they're making Broadway plays for legit anything. Like Mean Girls is a Broadway play.
So this is one of those movies. It's one of DreamWorks' first movies, right?
Okay.
It's like in their first five movies, and it's one that goes into development pretty shortly after DreamWorks gets started up. It's like something that Steven Spielberg had the rights to the children's book before DreamWorks was even a thing, and then the rights lapsed, and then they started DreamWorks, and so it's one of the first things they buy. And I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with some of the early DreamWorks catalog, right?
Yeah. Some of those lesser known hits.
Yeah, so
We're talking like what, like Prince of Egypt and movies like
yes,
that.
Prince of Egypt is the one that I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Um
yeah.
so it's like a Hollywood legend that, again, when we're getting into these legendary lore kind of things, take them with a grain of salt. At this point, we're in a pretty massive game of telephone, so who knows what's true or not, right? But the Shrek movie, amongst like DreamWorks developers, it's kind of like a Hollywood legend that it was like the basement. Like when you screwed up on Prince of Egypt, or you like did something that the Muckety Mucks didn't like, they called it getting Shreked, where you got sent to work on Shrek instead of Prince of Egypt. like they were like, and like the idea was like, I think the idea is that like Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the head of DreamWorks for a long, long time, like up until like even pretty recently, I think it was like 2016 when he finally stepped down. But I think like part of it was like he was really difficult to work on it because he like wanted it to be really edgy. And but yeah, so that's the first one I have, that the animators at DreamWorks would get Shreked and get sent from Prince of Egypt,
I would
which
believe
is
it.
a
Didn't
great
that?
great movie in its own right.
Yeah, I would watch the behind the scenes movie of that. Didn't I'm pretty sure a Disney movie in the 90s did that too, where they used all the good animators for a movie that they were banking on, and all of the side ones went for the other one, and then the other one ended up doing better. But I couldn't tell you which ones they were offhand, but I'm pretty sure that's a for animated movies, that might be a tale as old as time.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, right? Like, but so that's the first one I have, and then the
Okay.
second one kind of ties into with Shrek being very difficult to develop. Do you
Mhm.
know who the original voice of Shrek was supposed to be?
The one of the funniest men of the 90s, Chris Farley,
Yes, Chris Farley was the original voice of Shrek until he died
died.
an untimely death, and then they almost canned the movie, and then eventually settled on another famous SNL alum, Mike Myers.
See, it's crazy that they were considering canning the movie, because they were probably like way into animating. And because he had done the majority of his lines by the time he died, so they had
I
probably
didn't I
pretty
didn't
far
get
along in
that
this movie.
far, but yeah, I'm sure that they were like pretty far in terms of animating it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had seen that that Mike Myers recorded his lines and then re-recorded them, because the first like voice he did, he didn't think was up to par or like fit the character.
Yeah, he re-recorded them in the Scottish accent
Yeah,
that
yeah,
like Shrek is famous for at this point,
which
which
is crazy because like one, I want to see the dailies where he's not with the Scottish accent and see how like hilarious that is. And two, release the Farley cut with whatever you do have of his dialogue and let
yeah.
me hear that.
Yeah. I I just can't wrap my head around what an insane decision it is to just be like, all right, no, let's re-record this whole movie, but this time I'm gonna sound like I'm from Scotland. it's like Boom Mike. It's like a movie about an ogre. Like nobody else sounds like they're from Scotland. These people don't even know what Scotland is. And he's like, I know, but just trust me, it's gonna be great.
I
like,
mean, and he was right. The Shrek character with that accent is iconic. I couldn't imagine him not having that accent.
yeah, it's like it's definitely made it stand out. It still makes it stand out to
It
me.
made it unique. I just picture how Chris Farley is in other movies and can only imagine how manic Shrek would sound as Chris Farley. Like it's a whole completely different movie with Chris
It
Farley as
has to
Shrek.
be a totally different movie,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There's
Like you
no
take
way
any
that
of
I
those lines and you have Chris Farley saying them, and they're just so wildly different.
yeah, 100% agreed. It's like it's one of those pieces of movie lore that's just like it's such a crazy what if to me. Like what if Chris Farley doesn't die, you know? And like the first answer to that question is he plays Shrek. And I don't know what happens after that. You know
A
what I
lot of
mean? Like
variables up in the air at that point. And it's so funny to think because Chris Farley's whole shtick is his more manic anger energy. So I feel like so many of these lines would read so differently. Like you have Shrek at the one point where he's like, "You're going on the way to a smack bottom." But if it's like Chris Farley, it's like, "You're on the way to a smack bottom." Like he's just like losing his shit. Like, and you could just like picture
yeah,
his manic energy.
100%, yeah. And
Good
it's
kid
kind of,
plan.
this is the last bit that I have, right? And it
Mhm.
kind of makes me wonder about what you were just saying. But did you know that Shrek was based on a children's book?
No, I thought it was just riffing on Brothers Grimm books.
I didn't know it was based on a children's book until about 20 minutes before we started recording this.
Jeez.
And I looked up the book,
Uh-huh.
and like I I feel like we should at least talk about it a little bit because it's like very different than what the actual movie is. Like the movie is them just riffing on Brothers Grimm like books and
Yeah.
stories. And like but in the book he's really like there's not really like a lesson there. There's not really anything like human about Shrek. He's just a
Okay.
real jerk like the whole time. And like like he's like at one point he like walks into a hall of mirrors and he gets scared because he like sees all these like horrific ogres, and then he like breaks one of the mirrors and he's like, oh no, it's just me, and then like basically like high fives himself for how horrific he looks. Like,
It is
he's
so
like,
silly.
that's me and I'm pretty great, that's pretty happy, I'm pretty happy with that, that's what I want to be, I really want to be scary. Like there, so like, and then
Insane.
he does marry a princess in it, but there's no like rescue the princess and find true love and like realize that she's an ogre too. Like he
Yeah.
literally just he goes to the tower, kills a knight, and then and then the princess is just a human who's like even uglier than he is all the time, and they're just like happy together. And that's the end of the book.
That is something. When did that book come out?
1990 was when it
Oh
was
wow, so it wasn't
released.
even that like long in the past before this movie comes out.
Yeah, no, I mean like it's like 10, 11 years in between, and
But you would
like
think
it's like
the way it reads, I would imagine that book came out in like the 50s or some shit.
yeah, I get right. Yeah, that's not too far off. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
It's funny,
Um
and it's funny too that Steven Spielberg and everyone would like read that and be like, yeah, we can make that good.
I mean, I think the core of like making fun of like Disney princess stories is there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because that is sort of how the book comes across too. But the movie did it a lot better. I think the movie
movie
like
adds that level of heart that you need
yeah, it's got a
because
certain charm.
without that, it's just cruel, and you're like, why am I watching this just to be cruel?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So no, so like I wonder though, I get the reason I brought it up when I brought it up is because I wonder how much of that like frenetic, like frantic Chris Farley energy was playing more towards something that was closer to that. You know what I mean?
Oh, right. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess it would be interesting to see in what ways the movie changed once he died and they brought Mike Myers on. Like, were scenes recontextualized, or was the whole movie kept the same and Mike Myers just redid his dialogue, or did they imagine a bunch of stuff to fit this new version better?
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like if you get a bunch of creative people who make movies in a room and then you give them like 3 or 4 more years to make it, a lot's gonna change. You know what I mean?
For sure, for sure. But all right, I'm done with lore. I need my appetizer, my real appetizer now, Jim. It is time. Hit me with some juicy box office numbers.
Numbers, dates, and numbers, numbers, dates, array, dates, numbers. Show me the money.
All right. So, box office Shrek. Shrek opens May 18th, 2001. Opening weekend, surprise, surprise, it opens number one. We talked about this in our Mummy Returns episode. Um, with $42.3 million.
Oh, that's none too shabby, especially for such gamble probably at the time. You got this new studio. You're wondering how these movies are going to fare. It's a movie that's taking down the big, huge corporate animated giant Disney. So it's at 42.3 is good. 42.3, Jim, is good enough for this movie to tie Scary Movie. Scary Movie also made 42.3 in its opening weekend. So that movie will slot in right next to Scary Movie, where they sit just ahead of The Perfect Storm and just behind How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Yeah, I know. I mean, 42.3 is a good opening, and it beats out Mummy Returns, like we talked about. It also, A Knight's Tale is making its run at this point. I'm not sure if we talked about that in Mummy Returns,
Other classic,
but
as we
that
briefly
is
mentioned.
a strong contender for my pick in an upcoming episode.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Um, yeah, and so, like, what I'm pretty sure is the story for every movie we've done so far. Shrek opens number one, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've run into one yet where it didn't open number one.
No, I
And
think every movie we've done so far has opened number one.
yeah, Shrek not gonna go on a run here.
Surprising.
In its second week, it holds. It actually goes up 0.3% instead of
Oh
having a
shit.
drop. It holds 42.4 million.
Well, the
So
following
it's like
weekend's probably what?
right.
It's Memorial Day is the following weekend, probably,
Yeah,
right?
the following weekend's the
Yeah.
25th to the 27th. So
Okay.
I haven't looked this up, but I'm assuming that's Memorial Day weekend.
Sounds about right. If it held like that, it was definitely Memorial Day weekend.
Do you want to take a guess at what beats it?
I
Think.
unfortunately know what beats it
Oh, you know what it is? All right, never mind
because I
then.
watched it not too long ago, unfortunately, to try and see if it has aged any better in my eyes. And I'm going to tell you that it was the 2001 bomb, Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, it's honestly one of the biggest bombs of all time, right?
Yeah, pun very much intended.
We talked a few weeks ago about in our review episode, that our year in review episode, that The Flash is one of the biggest bombs of all time. Probably took the title from this movie. Like, this movie was like notoriously really bad and really a failure. But it did open to number one with $59 million.
Jesus Christ.
It stays in the top 10 for 8 weeks. It falls out in its ninth week on July 13th to the 15th.
Jumps back in though for
Oh,
1 week.
does it?
Yeah, I think like
Oh, okay.
two weekends later, it jumps back into the top 10 for one more week. I don't know what was going on there. Probably nothing was coming out, but it does. I'm looking there. I see it dives
that,
back in for one more week.
that week that it jumps back in for is
Yeah,
the number one opening weekend for another movie that I'm pretty sure we're going to be doing here in just a few weeks.
which is
Well, we kind of teased it in a previous episode, but it's Planet of the Apes.
oh boy,
Yeah.
dude, that's
I
gonna
don't
be.
know. Is that the next episode? I don't think
It
so,
is.
right?
It is not the next episode, but it is very soon on the list. I think there might be one or two movies in between it, but it's coming.
Yeah.
All
Oh,
right, so
okay. There definitely is at least one that I see here. Yeah.
yeah, so all right, so 9 weeks in the top 10, that's solid. That's pretty good. That's up there now. That's going to join the ranks of Gladiator, which also sits at 9 weeks in the number four position. So it's going to join Gladiator in the number four position right there, just ahead of The Lost World and The Grinch that both sit at 8 weeks, and then just behind Castaway, which sits at 10 weeks in the top 10. So
Good
that's a
showing. Yeah.
resounding success for Shrek, especially considering people were getting demoted to this movie.
Yeah. Right. Well, it's interesting how that works out, right? Um, and then yeah, just some totals really fast. It finishes domestic 267.8 million, international 216.7 million, for a worldwide total of 484. Let's call it point 0.6 million.
That 484 is good enough once again to slot this movie right behind Gladiator. So now Shrek will sit in the seventh position, just behind Gladiator and just ahead of The Mummy Returns is $435 million. So
Yeah,
Shrek
and
did
if you
pretty damn good. And I think this movie did better than any Disney movie did that year, at least animated wise. Because the mid 2000s, Disney really hits that slump as far as animated movie goes. They really had like fallen out of the renaissance in this area, and they're really struggling to figure out what that next era of Disney animated movies are going to look like. Without Pixar in these mid 2000s years, the Disney animated movie was really struggling. So Shrek came around at just the right time for DreamWorks to really soar here.
Yeah, and I mean we'll probably get into this more later, but it's like you were saying, where it really is kind of a thumb in the eye of the Disney tropes. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
really making fun of all the Disney princessness of it, and it's a very, it's playing on those same things and it's targeting the same audience, but it's really like really making fun of them in a way that I remember really appreciating as a kid. Like as a 10, 11-year old kid, I thought that was hilarious.
and it hit right around the time where we were just at that age where that would really resonate with us. It's funny too, looking back on it now, that after Shrek comes out, you don't see any Disney princess movies for a while.
Yeah, I guess what would the next one be?
I think after, because before 2001, I think the last one they did was either Pocahontas or Mulan. Then we don't see one
Yeah, I
again.
think Mulan
until-
was after Pocahontas.
yeah, and then the next one that I can think of is The Princess and the Frog in like 2008.
Which, yeah, that is a good chunk of time.
Which that's a huge chunk of time to go past. Because I remember when we were in high school in that era around when like Shrek is big right now, that you're getting movies like Home on the Range, Meet the Robinsons, just these pitiful attempts by the Disney Animation Studio to make these
Hey,
movies that weren't princess
hey,
movies,
I
but
kind of
still.
liked Meet the Robinsons.
I actually never saw Meet the Robinsons, so I can't really speak to that one. But
No,
I
it's okay.
remember
I don't know.
Home on the Range being atrocious.
I
I
don't know
remember
if I ever
us
saw that one.
I
I
remember
mean,
us
like,
enjoying Chicken Little when we went and saw it, but again, that's so far and away different than the Renaissance era of Disney that you look at. Like you could really tell
yeah,
that they're just throwing stuff. The mid 2000s Disney animated movies really feel and remind me of Disney now, where they're really just trying to find their legs creatively again.
yeah, I could see that. I mean, and in this same time frame, there's a lot of great Pixar movies coming out, right?
This is
So
where
like, they're not just
Pixar,
making like princess movies, but yeah, like
no, no, well, this is
you're
where they're
talking about
really
like what's
relying.
Wally, like 2005 maybe,
No, I think Wally was later than
2006.
that. Wally was like 2008.
Oh, is it really that late?
Yeah, Ratatouille was '07. Finding Nemo was '03.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, right, you're like
Pixar,
that comes out like,
yeah, Pixar really takes the lead here in just keeping Disney animation at, a high here.
but yeah, the princess movie probably doesn't make a big comeback until what, like Tangled, maybe Moana, but even
Yeah,
Moana's like kind of
yeah.
breaking that mold, right?
Not
That's
till
not
it's
really
yeah,
the same.
not till the 2010s when you get like Tangled, Moana, Frozen. And even
Yeah,
though they're
so
not as big now, I still think they do really well. Encanto was really big, although I don't even know if Mirabelle is considered like a Disney princess or not.
yeah,
But
and somewhere on the infinitesimal chance that Jeffrey Katzenberg is listening to this, he's very upset that we're talking more about Disney in our Shrek episode than Shrek.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I'm sorry. Sorry.
It's
Well, we're bringing it back. We're bringing it back. But
yeah,
Jeff, you should
yeah,
consider this a pro because Shrek was so good and influential in what it did that it basically
yeah,
ruined Disney for making princess movies for like 8 years, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
No,
did
right.
your
So I
job
think we covered
well.
it. It's like it hits in this kind of lull, and it really makes these princess movies totally uncool for the foreseeable future.
Exactly. He basically makes it, a death sentence. Don't do this right now because the
Which I'm realizing, I think we skipped over something here.
what?
What do you remember from seeing this movie in theaters?
Oh, that's right. We did not even discuss the memories.
Maybe there'll be
Memories.
some.
Yes, my memory of seeing this in theaters was going with my brother. Where I'm officially in the era now where Jackie and Big Rob feel comfortable enough to drop us off at the theater and leave us there alone. So me and Zach went and saw this movie, and I loved it. This was a movie when I was a kid that immediately, like we said, it was a takedown of all that stuff that you grew up on, and it came at right. We were right at the right age for this to really resonate and hit hard for us where I just completely dug every joke in this and loved that it was such a takedown of that Disney culture. What about you?
Yeah,
Do you have any,
totally.
Matt? Did you see this one in theaters?
This is the first movie that I can definitively say I saw it in theaters. My dad took me and my two younger siblings to see Shrek when it came out. And yeah, I loved it, dude. I was like exactly the right age. I was a big Mike Myers fan already at this point because again, I had older brothers and one of their movies that they really liked. I don't know if you've ever seen So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yes, so great story about the first time I saw that movie, real quick. It was we were seniors in high school the first time I saw that movie. And the reason that I saw it was because I really didn't feel like going to school that day. And since we could drive ourselves, Big Rob, wasn't waiting for me. He took Zach to school and then left for work. So I was at home still getting ready.
Yeah.
Decided I didn't want to go to school. So I stayed home, called the school myself, pretending to be Big Rob, and was like, oh, my son is sick. He can't come to school today. He's sick, and then hung up. But apparently, I was so unconvincing because the school then immediately called my dad's cell phone to confirm, and my dad was just like, "Yeah, he is sick today." And then he called me immediately, and he's like, "If that house isn't fucking spotless by the time I get home later, you're dead." So I couldn't even enjoy "So I Married an Ex Murderer" while I was watching it because then I was
Oh,
so
because you
worried that
had to
I was gonna
clean.
get murdered when Big Rob came home.
That's funny. Yeah, that's
My
funny.
terrible attempt
Yeah.
at
No,
calling myself out of sick from
so
school.
yeah. So no, so but Shrek had Mike Myers in it. I had seen So I Married an Axe Murderer, and I did not fake sick from school to see it, so I was allowed to enjoy it. Um, and it had Smash Mouth's All Star in it, which for me was a big deal at the time. Like,
That was the
still a big deal to this
quintessential.
day.
That was a quintessential song from when we were kids. That song was everywhere.
Yeah, that song's a big deal now, and it's kind of funny, and it's a meme, and people joke about it. But I don't know if people really understand just how big of a deal that song was in like 1999 or 2000, whenever it came out. It was like the very early
Absolutely.
2000s.
And completely
Um,
unironic too, because I feel like a lot of it
yes,
today is very ironically loved, whereas back then everybody just legit loved that song.
that song was the most popular song by a million miles, and like I like genuinely loved it when I was a kid. I was like, it came on in the bowling alley, and I was like tapping my toes, man. I dug that song.
I burned out that CD listening to it so much, that Smash Mouth CD.
Yeah. Oh, you burned it out? You
Oh, I
might as well be
burned it
walking
out.
on the sun.
Yeah, dude, a collection of hits on that album too, man. That song
Yeah,
bops,
right.
right? Doesn't that one start with it's like the alarm, do 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 do, good morning.
Dude, I don't know. I'm just,
I'm pretty sure that's how it starts.
that's the only thing I remember about Smash Mouth is that one hook and then the entirety of the song All Star. Because it's also like, are the lyrics to that song not completely burned into your brain like 25 years later?
Absolutely.
I
Somebody starts
like
playing
you
it,
could
and you're
I know every word. I can't help but say them.
yeah.
There's
Did it was it was huge before, right? It was a summer anthem before Shrek used it, right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. And like there was we talked about Barbie and Oppenheimer in our episode a few weeks ago, how they were this kind of conflagration of things that really just like both raised each other up. And the really Shrek and the song All Star kind of the same thing here. Cause like it's like I'm pretty sure All Star was a really big deal before Shrek, right? And Shrek
Yeah.
was a good movie with or without the song All Star. But when you put the two together, it created such a phenomenon that that it still lives to this day, man. I don't even know how to explain it. I still get excited thinking about it. I'm like a 35-year-old man.
And it's one of those things that really accentuates how important music is in movies sometimes. Because
Yeah.
it's crazy how well that fits there and how it just sets the stage for the type of movie you're about to see.
Yeah. And listen, the media men may beg to differ,
All
but
right.
judging by the hole in the satellite picture, I'm just saying, like,
Oh,
I
all
think you, I
right.
think you
All
nailed it.
right. Settle down over there.
All right. So no, so I do remember seeing this, and I do remember thinking it was great, and it's again largely due to the song All Star. It's hard to put into words how big of a deal this was in my elementary school. Like everybody loved Shrek. It
Oh,
was
this
huge.
this was a huge deal everywhere too, because not only did this movie do well critically, it did well commercially, it did well award season also. This movie won the first ever award for Best Animated Feature.
Nice. What was it up against?
The only other movie I know from that year that was in there was Monsters Inc.
Okay. That, I
Which
mean, ooh,
that's a tough
that's a
race, right?
tough one.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
tough race right there because Monsters Inc. is also a phenomenal fucking movie right there.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, it was a really good movie. Let me
Yeah.
look up really quick what
Another
else it
interesting
beat.
tidbit is that I didn't expect. I knew it won Best Animated Feature. I didn't know that it was also nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay,
Wow, yeah, and
which
we didn't
kind
even
of
know it
cracks
was
me up.
adapted until
Yeah, and yeah, now we know it was adapted. It lost to A Beautiful Mind.
which okay, that's fair, I think. So you had one right. It beat out Monsters Inc. for the first and ever Best Animated Film award.
Mm.
You don't know the other one, right?
2001. No, I can't think of it.
Okay, so this was back when they still only had three movies. I'll give you one hint. It
It
was a
only had three
Nickelodeon
movies.
movie.
Is it? Oh,
Yeah,
hold on,
because
hold on, hold on. I think I know what it is. Is it
yeah,
Jimmy Neutron?
it's Jimmy Neutron Boy
Dude.
Genius, which I am gonna preface this by saying I might need to go back and rewatch Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, but I think this is going to show us right now that the best animated film category, not what it is today. It used to be much lighter.
Much, much lighter. And Jim, don't you worry about revisiting Jimmy Neutron. You will be revisiting Jimmy Neutron not too
Oh
long from
no
now.
way! No way! Did you see Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius in theater?
I, you goddamn right, I did.
Oh no! That's gonna be such a horrible one. No, no, I mean, you know what though? It got nominated for an Oscar. Let's give it a shot.
That's an
I'm
Oscar
sure it's
nominated movie,
fine.
Jim. All right. Why don't you give it some respect on that name? All right.
Yeah, I mean, I did love that show back in the day.
So did I, but I couldn't tell you. I can't tell you the last time I even watched a minute of Jimmy Neutron. So that'll be an interesting one to go back to. Very, very funny. So that's in your future, Jim.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Looking forward to that.
So,
But enough about
so
Jimmy
yeah,
Neutron. Let's dive into Shrek. How was returning to the world of Shrek for you, rewatching the first Shrek in however long it's been?
I mean, I liked it. It's still a really funny movie. Um, I thought I thought the premise of it was really good. I thought John Lithgow as Farquaad is still hilarious, like the short, like ineffectual lord. Um, yeah, so I mean, I don't know, like it still really did everything that I remember it doing, and like there was even parts that I didn't quite remember or like kind of went over my head, like the whole dating game thing. Was
Oh,
so
when
funny.
yeah, dude,
Yeah.
and that's one of those ones where I love their plethora of silly supporting characters, like his right hand man Thelonious, when he's like, "Two, my lord, pick two," but he's holding up three
Yeah.
fingers. It's like I cry
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah, but so, dude, some of the jokes in those intros were so good. Like, I lost it. And this is again like those adult jokes in animated movies that you don't really pick up on when you're 10. But when they're
Yeah.
like, even though she lives with seven guys, she's not easy. And then like the rim shot hits. Like, it's so good. Um,
There really is a plethora of jokes that would go right over your head as a kid, but hit so well watching it as an adult now. Like it took me so many years to realize that John Lithgow's character, Lord Farquaad, sounded like fuckwad.
oh
Every
yeah.
every time they say his name, it sounds like they're just saying fuckwad.
Wait, hold on. Let's give it a listen.
Lord Farquaad.
sounds like
Yeah,
he's
I mean, I
saying
guess
fuck
I
off.
kind of hear it. Yeah, I kind of hear it now that you say it. Let's like one more here. Hold on. Let's give it.
Lord Farquaad.
Yeah, like now that you mention it, I think that's exactly what they were going for.
Oh my god,
Oh man.
that's
Yeah,
so
so
funny.
yeah. Like the little stuff like that too, that the like the three little pigs just speak in those like hilarious over the top ridiculous accents.
Yeah, well, every fairy tale character that they put in this, they managed to make them all sound uniquely hilarious. Like you said, that the three little pigs, the three blind mice was like, Gerald, is that you? Like they just sound like three
Yeah.
fumbling like doofuses. Like,
Yeah. They
oh,
like
geez.
stumble into his living room. Yeah. Um no, so like yeah, I don't know, like they did exactly what they set out to do, which was like parody and make fun of all these like fairy tale stories, and they nail every one of them, you know?
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest pro for this movie is they really, really come through on lampooning all of those Brothers Grimm movies. And I feel like this is a movie that its first half for me works a lot better than its second half because the first half is so chock full of just that bit after bit after bit after bit of them sending up all of those like the whole opening 20 to 25 minutes where he comes across all the fairy tale creatures in his swamp is pure gold. Like he deals with the
Yeah.
three blind mice, and then the seven dwarfs throw Snow White on the table, and he's like, "No, no, dead broad off the table." And they're like,
Yeah,
"Where are we
they're like the
supposed to put
bet's
it? That bed's
taken.
taken." And like the big bad wolf is in there. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. And then the three little pigs talk about Farquaad again, right?
He huffed and he puffed and he signed an eviction notice.
it's so goddamn good.
Yeah. So no, yeah, it's like they really like they ham it up and they lean into all the silly things we know about these stories, but they turn like they meld it with them invading Shrek Swamp. And I love when he's like talking about like kicking them out and how he's gonna go to Lord Farquaad and like tell him what's what, and like they're all like yeah, like they just start cheering for
They're
him
like,
like
"This
he's a
guy's the
hero.
man."
Yeah, they're like, that's exactly what we want too.
Yeah. I love how too like they're not even scared of him. Like he comes out and they're spooked at first, but then he walks out and a bunch of them just run around him and then run into his house and lock him out. It
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
cracks me up every time. Oh, dude, this movie is so silly.
yeah. And then, of course, I mean, this is all after he meets Donkey, who is another like Eddie Murphy to me is so funny in this movie.
And his one especially. I feel like I would have loved to read the actual script before Eddie Murphy came in and did his lines because so much of it I feel like is just Eddie Murphy just riffing. Like all the songs he randomly sings, just
Yeah,
everything about him is just so hilariously over the top. And I feel a lot of it was I wonder if it was very much in the sense of when like Robin Williams did the genie, where they just put Robin Williams in a room and let him go nuts, and then they animated around him.
yeah. I mean, I can definitely see like exactly what you're talking about being what they did. Yeah, and I'm gonna go look back through his IMDb really fast because um
Even when you first
he
meet Donkey, he does like he has that ridiculous line when he first gets the fairy dust, and he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I bet you seen a superfly, but you ain't never seen." Like he just starts rattling off all of these references with the fly in the title. Like his play on word delivery is so damn good.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so this is kind of like a continuation of something that starts to happen with Eddie Murphy, like in the late 90s, right? Where, you know, he's this brash stand up comedian and he's known for like having a pretty dirty act, right? If I remember correctly. Um, you know, he's been in movies, but none of them are really like what I would call like kids' movies. And then like the Nutty Professor is maybe kind of on that line, but then he does a voice in Mulan. He does Mushu in Mulan. He does Doctor Doolittle, which is definitely a kids' movie. Couple more like not so kids movies, and then Shrek. And this is probably the thing that really cements him, right? As like the he's still doing his Eddie Murphy shtick, right? But like this is
Yeah.
the kind of thing where I don't know that there's ever any going back to what Eddie Murphy was before after Shrek comes out. You know what I mean? Like it's
He
like feels
really,
like this is what he does now.
yeah. And I mean, you see him pivot after this. Daddy Daycare,
Yep.
um,
The
how,
Adventures of Pluto Nash was a
yeah,
very silly
how
one.
many just like family
Haunted
friendly,
Mansion.
yeah, movies do you see him do now? This totally pivots his career in the later half of his stage now, where he's just going to hone in on those kids movies and try and just replicate that easy success that you see
Yeah.
from here in Shrek. And some worked better than others, but when you put him in something like this where you really let him swing for the fences, and it works completely well. Every time he utters most things in this movie, I'm crying.
Yeah, he's such a good like foil, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm not using that word correctly, but like he just plays so well off of Shrek. You know what I mean? Like
No, absolutely.
yeah, especially because like the whole point of their relationship throughout the beginning and really through most of the movie is that they like Shrek can't stand him, right? Like
Uh,
the whole time he's basically saying,
Can't get rid of him.
you know, and like so like it's just cool. Like he plays again. We talk about this kind of like straight man and then like guy making jokes relationship a lot, where like Shrek kind of plays like the annoyed, straight man,
uh,
and Donkey just like hammers him over and over and over again. Like he
he's a
never lets up, you know?
he's a great color commentator to
Yeah, exactly.
his straight man. But it works because that's the dynamic of the movie. Is you see Shrek is this ogre that is scaring all these people away, but really all he wants is a friend and to not be alone. And Donkey comes along, who is this guy that is not taken by any of the usual defense mechanisms that Shrek has up, and immediately breaks
Right.
his core. Like when he comes up and Shrek does the big scream in Donkey's face to get rid of him, and Donkey just no sells it whatsoever, and he's just like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's really scary!" Like, and he's just like running around with him. So he's like, I bet that gets all the
Yeah.
people. He's like,
Yeah,
"You're not
right.
scared?
Yeah.
Do I
Like
detect a hint of
Donkey
minty freshness?"
Donkey is exactly what Shrek needs. You're right. Like he needs for somebody to just treat him like he's normal, and that like there's nothing like wrong with him or anything.
Yeah, yeah, like, and they just play off of each other so well. So their relationship is really what sells a large portion of this movie, because their interactions against each other are so great. Especially, I love the moments, as they start to become more friendly with each other on this journey, and Shrek is starting to let his guard down, and you see Shrek start to make those silly jokes that Shrek thinks is funny but don't land for Donkey at all. Like it goes right over his head. Like when they
Yeah.
first show up to Lord Farquaad's castle, and he's like, "You think he's compensating for something?" And Donkey just has no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. Which another great like adult joke, by the way.
Yeah, another absolute classic right there is seeing his huge castle, and he's a short, diminutive man. So he's like, you think he's compensating for something? It's like
Yeah, yeah.
that's a great dick joke right there.
Dude, and you know I'm a total sucker for those kind of like Abbott and Costello like comedy routine kind of things. And
Absolutely.
since you brought up Lord Farquaad again, when they interrogate the gingerbread man is still
Oh,
so funny to me to this day.
so especially because it's so over the top absurd. Because
Yeah,
at the same time, you never really find out what he's interrogating him for, because in the middle of the
no,
interrogation they come in with the mirror, so you never
right,
really know what he's trying to get out of the
right.
gingerbread man.
They come in at the mirror, and God, whoever does the gingerbread man's voice, dude, when they come in with the mirror and he's all
Don't tell him anything!
just absolutely top notch, dude. It cracks me up.
But even before that, when he's like interrogating him, and Gingy is like gonna take him on a goose chase right now, and he's like, "Okay, you know, the Muffin Man." It's like, "The Muffin
Yeah,
Man,
well,
Muffin Man."
yeah, and that's the routine. They're just saying like
The
word for
word.
word the lyrics to the Muffin Man, but
Yeah,
the way their inflection is and the
yeah.
context of the scene makes it so
Well,
funny. It's such a good bit.
She's married to the Muffin Man.
When he's like the Muffin Man who lives on Drury Lane. Like,
Just so
yeah, and it's just so much better that it's John Lithgow because he like only he can sell that quite so good. You know what I mean?
he's John Lithgow was picture perfect for this role.
Yes.
He does so well, and he's one of those actors too that can add that gravitas to it in such a short amount of time. Because Lord Farquaad is not like he's missing from the entire middle of this movie, so it's a testament
Yeah.
to how good of an actor he is that he sells the few scenes that you have with him in it, and
Yeah.
totally makes you hate this guy. It's great.
I mean, yeah, you're right. He doesn't really have that much screen time, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
he's
like
in the
pretty non-existent.
yeah. You see him in the beginning, and then we see him at the end. But the entire middle, where Shrek and Donkey are going to get Princess Fiona and back, you never see. We don't see anything with him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but he's so funny. I like I like all the like stupid little gags in this movie. Like I
One
don't
of my
know why it gets such a belly laugh out of me, but when they
yeah.
first get to Duloc and that guy, the mascot starts
Yeah,
running away from him, but he won't go outside the like
he runs
stanchions, like
through
he's
the
like
lines.
running inside the line.
That's another bit, like even further on that is that's just the castle where everybody lives. Like, why are there stanchion poles to get in? Like, and there's
Right,
like the
right.
turnstiles, like it's like you're going into Disney World. And then they
Yeah,
have
yeah,
the like it's a
totally.
small world song kind of.
Right, right.
Welcome to
Do like
Dulac.
it. Yeah.
Shine your
So,
shoes, wipe your face. The
yeah.
donkey's just like,
Yeah,
wow,
that's
let's do that again.
yeah. Yeah.
And that's what works
But
so
no,
good because
just
Donkey's the glass half full guy and Shrek is the glass half empty guy. So they just completely accentuate each other. Like they'll see that and Shrek is like, what the fuck was that? And Donkey is like, yeah, we gotta watch that again. It's like, no,
yeah.
no, no.
Totally, yeah.
Well,
No, but
that leads
like
to one of my favorite.
those little gags crack me up,
Oh yeah,
dude.
they're
Like just
amazing.
those little sight gags.
And that leads into one of my favorite bits too, is I love when movies bring professional wrestling into their bits. And there's just
Oh
the whole
yeah.
bit where, because like it's so funny that Shrek and them show up, and Lithgow is like, new plan: whoever kills the ogre gets to be my champion. And for whatever reason, there's kind of like the horse stable in there, but it's set up like a wrestling ring.
Yeah, right.
There's the
And Shrek
ropes in
just
it.
houses
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah.
Shrek gets in there and he just starts doing pile drivers. Can't we settle this over a pint? No.
You brought up that middle of that movie though, where he like it shifts gears in a big way, where Lithgow, like you said, takes a back seat, and all of a sudden it becomes more about Shrek and this princess. What did you think about that whole middle section?
So I still like all of this all the way through. I think the latter half of this movie this time around for me kind of loses a bit of its steam
Okay.
since we're kind of pivoting into it's not so much it's still lampooning a lot about what the go get the princess journey is like, but at the same time lacks the kind of punch that the beginning had. But I still
Yeah.
enjoy it.
The only part I would disagree with you on is when Monsieur Hood shows up.
That's what I was literally about to say. But that yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the ones where it still really
Which
hits
is
there.
that whole song that they do, dude, is so funny.
And that's another one with jokes that just go right over your head when he makes the getting laid
Yeah,
joke. Can I love
yeah,
to get
yeah,
paid?
yeah.
When there's a lady in
My
the bush and
merry
she's about to tush.
man.
That's bad. That's bad. That's really, really bad.
Yeah, and
Like,
then, like,
it's
and then they
so
say something
silly.
else, and he's like, "That makes him mad. Yeah, mad. Yes, really, really mad." They're like doing
How
like the
rude la
West Side
la.
Story like snaps, dude. It's
Yeah.
so silly.
It's so absolutely absurd. I
Yeah.
and I think
And
the
then maybe the only Matrix ripoff fight scene that in a movie that I
uh
liked.
yep,
Because
yeah.
I don't remember if we talked about this in our scary movie episode, but it's like that time frame. Literally every movie was making fun of like the special
Bullet
physics from the
stopping.
Matrix.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I kind of like this one when she's beating up all the Mr. Hood guys, and she does like the jumping spin like crane kick.
And like fixes her hair and then finishes it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So that part really hits. And I mean, this is really a nitpick, because I mean, how much can you really complain about it when it's an animated movie? But it feels like they really just rush through Shrek and Fiona falling in love. Like it's
Yeah,
literally just like a montage of them walking back and they're into each other.
yeah. I mean, when you think about it, though, they're both really lonely people. So
Oh,
it's
I
it's
know.
not totally beyond the realm of possibility to me that like the first time somebody smiles at either one of them, they're like, "All right, let's get married."
Yeah.
Like,
The scene
you know
when
what I mean?
they
Like,
yeah, the scene when he saves Fiona too also has one of my favorite running gags in film and television, where somebody puts like not even a really good mask on where you could still see their face, but she doesn't realize that it's an ogre until he
oh
takes
yeah,
the helmet off. And it's like I
yeah,
love that bit in movies when they do that, where like it's clearly like the same. We were talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles not too long ago, the one we grew up on, when Ralph goes to the movies and he's just wearing a trench coat and a fedora and nobody knows it's a turtle.
yeah, yeah,
Like I
totally.
like that might be one of my favorite tropes in movies, is when they do shit like that. So that went a long way for me too, and cracked me up.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
yeah, but I see what you're saying. It's a nitpick. Like they do kind of fall for each other quickly.
It's literally
Um,
just a montage and then they're into it. And it's a really like in the montage is funny and silly, but it's so quick and just non sequiturs, and then they're into each
yeah,
other. Like
yeah,
she catches a web of spiders for him to eat, and like
yeah, yeah,
they blow the frog and the snake into balloons. Like it's so silly and over the top, and I
yeah.
guess a
But
little too
like,
saccharine at that
when
point.
when do you think the last time Shrek had fun with anyone is? You
Oh,
know what I mean? Like,
never in his life.
right,
But no,
right.
I can get him really falling for her quickly. I mean, I guess to your point too. Yeah, she's also been alone in a castle for so
Yeah, dude,
long.
she's lived in a tower for like her whole life, waiting for to marry the guy who rescued her. It could have been literally anything, and she would have been falling for it. Like,
Sure. No,
but
it definitely is a nitpick, but that's one of those things in the movie that feels like they kind of like speed run through it, like it's very quick.
yeah.
But again,
Well, no, and
it's
I'm
a
being a
nitpick.
little, yeah, I'm being a little silly, but I guess the way I would put it is this, right? Like, if you had to pick between that movie staying, what is it, like 85
I think it's like
minutes?
90 minutes at most.
Yeah, so like between if you had to pick between that movie staying at 85 to 90 minutes exactly how it is or adding another 10 minutes to see them fall in love more, which one do you pick?
Keeping it as it is.
Yeah, right, me
Yeah,
too. So
yeah,
that's like
yeah. Which
I definitely see where you're coming from, but agree
yeah,
that it's probably like a nitpick.
yeah, it's just a tiny nitpick. It's just something you notice watching it going around this time. And I know it's definitely intentional, but the animation style really is jarring at times, especially watching it now. I was like, I know they definitely made this crude on purpose. But it just
I don't
felt like
know. I
watching it
think
now, it definitely looked more dated than I remembered it looking.
it definitely does. And I think that goes to what we were talking about earlier where you probably remember the later Shrek movies more for how
For
it
sure.
looks. But yeah, I don't know that that was necessarily on purpose. I think that that was probably just this was like their fifth movie, and
I mean, it's
computer graphics were like pretty new at the time. You know what I mean?
entirely possible. I don't know. I kind of chalked it up to they were, trying to make more of the like crude how the Brothers Grimm fairy tales actually looked, as opposed to, the Disneyification of them.
Yeah. No, I mean that very well could be. I hadn't even
Yeah,
thought of that.
it's possible, but yeah, I don't know. But it's still it's just a fun movie. It's one of those movies where we talk about it a lot of times with movies like this, where it's really tough to level really impactful critiques, because at the end of the day, it's an animated kids movie. Like it's Shrek. Like or like how
Yeah.
unless it's like unbearable, how much do you really have to like complain about in the movie?
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of like why I would pick the keeping it the way it is and keeping it like 85 minutes. Cuz to me in that middle there's definitely still some funny parts, but it's like right on the brink of being unbearable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like right on the brink, but they like managed to kind of skate that line and then bring it back into funny stuff, which like really kept me invested. Yeah.
Also, they managed to keep it to toe the line in this one, but it's really insane that somebody sat in the office when they decided to make this into a franchise, and they were like, "Yeah, so Donkey and Dragon are gonna fucking have kids."
Yeah, which is
And
like
it's like, what?
such an
This
such an
is
absurd
this
choice.
is this is a kids movie, man. Like what?
Yeah, but it's funny though. Like that
It is, but
they
it's still so insane.
yeah, I mean like I don't know. That's how a lot of those movies would end though. It'd be like and then they had a baby. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So like
you're a girl
it
dragon.
was yeah. It was another way to like keep that in there, but to do it in the most absurd way possible that this movie allowed, you know?
Yeah,
Which is
and
this obnoxious talking donkey somehow impregnates that giant dragon.
so fucking absurd.
Yeah.
I
Dude,
love
you know what
too
else
when go on, go
no,
on.
go ahead.
So the one I was gonna say is quick is I love when Dragon flies Donkey and Shrek to the wedding and they drop them off and Donkey just looks at her and he's like, go have some fun. And she just goes and just starts mauling like
Yeah.
knights around the air.
Yeah. Dude, I was actually gonna bring up around that same part. I love the way that they interrupt the wedding, and
Oh
Donkey's
yeah.
like, "No, no, no! You're supposed to wait until he asks if anybody has any reason for them not to." And he's like
It's like throwing them up.
throwing Donkey in the air so he can
Oh,
see
I think
through
they
the
said it
window.
already.
Yeah, that's like one of my favorite gags in the whole movie, dude. Because that's another thing that happened used to happen in movies all the time, right? Like,
If anybody objects to this wedding.
yeah,
It's
and
such
like
a thing.
somehow,
That's one of those things when you watch so many movies as a kid that you think that's like a real thing. And
yeah,
it's like,
it's like
who in their
quicksand,
right
dude.
mind
I
would
thought I
ever
was
do
gonna run
that?
into that way
Yeah,
more than I did.
yeah.
Like,
It's like I could never imagine being at a wedding and somebody offering up, if anyone objects, speak now. Like, what? I think we're
yeah,
way past the time for anyone to object to this
right,
shit.
right.
Like,
It's like, it's
so
like,
insane.
is that like the law? Do you need to ask that? Who told you to ask that? Like,
It's so
it's
that whole wedding scene is also great because it also kind of reminds me of one of the things we were joking about in Gladiator, where it must have been hilarious to be a citizen at that wedding because you just watch your king get murdered by a dragon and you're just like,
yeah.
did our king just get fucking eaten? And these
It's
ogres are now
like,
like, are these ogres are
yeah.
rulers now?
Are
Like,
they like in charge? I don't
yeah.
know, man.
But they're all just like clapping at the end, like, oh, it's love. It's so sweet. So we love it's so beautiful. Like it's like,
Yeah,
yo,
yeah.
Shrek just completely ruined this kingdom. Who's gonna lead us now?
Yeah. But dude, he wrecked the kingdom, but he saved Fiona's life, and that's what matters.
One thing I do have to take this movie to task for, and it's
Yeah.
something that DreamWorks and now Illumination can't help but do, is Shrek really kicked off the animated movie of shoehorning in unnecessary hit songs. Like we talked so much about Smash Mouth in this, but there's so many like
Not
who
nearly
in their
enough, by
right
the way.
fucking mind was like, yo, we should take the absolutely serious and glorious song Hallelujah and put it in this movie to show our characters at their lowest. Like
I
I
mean,
can never hear that fucking song ever again without thinking
which
about
one is
Shrek
that
just
in?
like what?
Is that oh that's in this movie,
That's in
right?
this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
After Shrek tells Donkey to fuck off and Fiona goes to marry Farquaad, like that song plays
Yeah.
and it shows all
Yeah.
like Shrek is at his table like alone and like he can't like do it. It's like get the
It's
fuck
pretty silly.
out of here.
It's pretty silly, dude.
And then now you fast forward and you see all these songs in everything these days. Like look at the Mario movie that just came out and they shoehorn so many of those just unnecessary pop and just mainstream songs into these movies. And I feel like Shrek is the movie that really launched that.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was the one that launched it, but I just think like that's never going anywhere. And like kids just are dumb, dude. So like you put like really popular music in a movie and they're like, "Oh my God, I love that popular music." Like
Yeah. No, I know. And again, it's a nitpick thing, but I have to take Shrek to task for it
no,
because
the hallelujah part is really silly.
it's so goddamn silly.
Like so silly that I almost wonder, like you were wondering, like is that kind of the joke? You know what I mean? Like, am I
Yeah,
in
like
on the joke
yeah, like
now as when I
did
wasn't
somebody hear
before?
Hallelujah and was like, we have to put that in there because that would be the funniest shit ever to
Yeah,
show them at their lowest as we play Hallelujah.
right. Because that, dude, that's another like trope. Like maybe not even in princess movies, but just in every movie, like where there's always that part where they're at their lowest, like right around that point of the movie.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I could see them really leaning into it and being like, "What's the hammiest, silliest song we can play while
can play
he's
right
going
there.
around?"
Yeah. And then they do it again to just play us out. They're like, what if we're gonna have the fairy tale creatures play in a band at the end and they're just gonna play I'm a Believer.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
sing
what?
the
You're like,
monkeys, dude.
yeah, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure. Like, why not? Why the
Dude,
fuck not?
I I have a vivid memory of going on like I think it was a field trip where did you ever be on like one of those buses where they could play TV on it?
Yeah.
And so we were on one of those buses and we played the Shrek VHS at the time or like whatever
Oh,
it was. Maybe it was a DVD. I don't remember.
oh.
Um but like we played Shrek and I remember all of us like dancing and singing along to the I'm a Believer at the end. Like,
I mean, it really hypes you up for the end of that movie, man. When Eddie Murphy's just like, I believe, I believe, I believe, believe, believe.
yeah, yeah.
And they're like, believe. You're like,
Yeah,
yeah.
really all it is all the animators who got Shrek'd from Prince of Egypt. They're like, they wouldn't let us do I'm a Believer in Prince of Egypt. We got to do it over here.
Gold. Absolutely.
Like
Well, that one also
it
cracks
just
me up because
works.
they're just like, we're gonna sing that, and then we're just gonna have like Pinocchio like start breakdancing.
Yeah.
So fucking absurd.
Yeah, when they were gonna do it in Prince of Egypt, that Moses was gonna be breakdancing, but they had to change it once they went to Shrek.
Moses breakdancing. I'm a believer.
Yeah.
Were they gonna
Yo,
play that when he meets the burning bush?
I'm
I
just saying, you're telling me Moses
believe.
wasn't a believer? He was a believer, man.
He
I saw the movie.
absolutely was a believer. I didn't see that movie until just recently, actually, and it was
Oh,
surprisingly
really?
very good. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that one, that
I rewatched it a couple of years ago. It was,
yeah, that one,
whew, it's still so good.
yeah, that one had slipped by me.
I think that's all I got for the likes and don't likes. I mean, I mostly liked it, but it's like a silly kids movie. That's kind of like
Exactly.
where
It's
my
it's
head's
one of
at.
those ones that, as we said, the dislikes are mostly just nitpicks. It's nothing that actively hurts what is just a fun, enjoyable animated classic right there.
Do we want to take a look at some IMDb?
Baby, hit me with some this or that. You can go with this or you can go with that. All right, who is up first in this deep dive, Jim? Who we diving into?
So I think we should start with Mike Myers, right? Starting
All
with the
right.
star is
Oh yeah.
probably a pretty good way to go. So I'm gonna say first Shrek or Austin Powers. And when I say Austin Powers, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me where in a list of 4 movies does Shrek fall?
A list of four. So all Austin Powers movies we're doing, you're
Yeah,
encompassing all three of them.
yeah, like do you put it above any of them? Do you put it above all of them? Do you put it above none of them?
So I would put it above the third one. And then I would put
Wow,
the first two Austin Powers movies ahead of Shrek.
interesting. Okay, I'm
Because
gonna
I
put Shrek. No, go ahead.
I love the first two Austin Powers movies.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised to hear that you don't love Goldmember as much.
I do love Goldmember, but I think Shrek has the better parody stuff in it. Goldmember gets a little tired at times.
That's fair. That's
But I
fair.
do, but I do still love Goldmember. Where
Personally,
where do
I'm
you
gonna
put it?
put I'm gonna put Shrek fourth on that list. It is
Ooh,
behind every Austin Powers movie
every
to me.
Austin Powers movie. Okay, that's fair.
Very different movie, but we brought it up earlier. Shrek or So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Shrek.
Okay, yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, I've watched So I Married an Axe Murderer since, and it did not hold up to nearly what I remember it being.
Yeah,
Um, Shrek or Wayne's World. Either one, take your pick.
Shrek.
I am gonna take Shrek. Yeah, I'll take
Tough.
Shrek. I
Yeah.
like the
I,
Wayne's World
yeah, I
movies, but
like
I'll
the
take
Wayne's
Shrek.
World movies too, but Shrek, definitely. What is it
Shrek
you
or
can't
Cat
say?
in the Hat.
Oh man,
That's what we
now
gotta talk about.
now you're getting in there. Shrek, come on.
I think I'll take Shrek, but on the caveat that I want to rewatch Cat in the Hat again
Well,
because
don't
I
you
think I
worry,
might.
Jim. We will be watching Cat in the Hat.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk more about it then.
So it'll be interesting because we say
Um,
Shrek now, and then when we get to the Cat in the Hat episode, it'll be interesting to see if how we pivot if after we've watched Cat in the Hat again.
I haven't seen the Cat in the Hat in a long time,
Neither have I, but I remember
but
it being absolutely insane.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I will absolutely love it this time around when we watch it. But we'll talk more about that one
Yeah,
when it
we'll
comes.
get there. We'll get there.
Uh, Last one, Shrek or Bohemian Rhapsody. No, I'm
Shut
just
up.
kidding. We
Fuck
don't
off.
have to do that.
Fuck off.
All right, so moving on. I want to do really fast. Something a little different. We don't often get into writers on this, but you mentioned a writing duo earlier on the episode. And
Quite
do,
possibly
remind us.
my favorite writing duo.
Yeah, remind us. Who are you talking about again?
So two of the writers on this movie are two of the greatest living film writers of all time, in my opinion, at least, and that is Ted Elliott and Terry Rossio.
So let's go through a couple of their movies, and there is a lot, but I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna try and stay in the same kind of vibe, right? So Shrek or Aladdin?
Aladdin.
Aladdin, yeah, and it's not particularly close for me.
Aladdin, just an absolute banger.
Shrek
They
or
wrote a movie that we've already talked about here today, another DreamWorks movie.
that we've already talked about here today. Oh, did they write The Road to El Dorado?
Yes, they did.
They did, yeah.
They did.
I'll take Shrek over The Road to El Dorado.
We'll also take Shrek over that, but I do think that movie is criminally underrated.
Shrek or Small Soldiers?
Dude, they've just written so
Dude,
many good
I
movies.
I haven't even scratched the surface, dude. The reason I didn't get
The ones you know I'm going to be
to
high on.
well to The Road to El Dorado yet is because I was looking at the late 90s and being like, oh wow, I got to see which of these three that I want to say. But also the
Yeah,
first one I'll say is Small Soldiers.
dude. So I'm still going to take Shrek, but I love Small Soldiers.
I'm taking Small Soldiers.
Really? All right. All right. Dude,
Yeah,
that's a
with like
great.
I haven't seen that since I was a kid, but kid me would have taken Small Soldiers, so I'm
Yeah.
sticking with it.
That movie's a classic.
Shrek. Okay, I'm maybe getting a little out of the vibe here, but these are movies that I can't read and not mention. Shrek or The Mask of Zorro.
Dude, see, dude, do you see how many good movies they've
Yes,
written?
I do. Yes, I do.
The Mask of Zorro. That's like one of the best action adventure movies ever made.
Yeah, I'll take The Mask of Zorro as well.
I
Uh,
fucking love that movie. I might have to go watch that
I'm gonna
after we
I'm
finish
gonna
this.
I'm gonna begrudgingly not say Godzilla. I'm gonna say Shrek or Treasure Planet.
They wrote the 1998 Godzilla.
They did. They have a credit on it. I'm not sure. Oh, they have a story credit. They don't have a
Okay,
written
so
document. They
they
have
all
a
right. So
story
they
credit.
all right. Good. So that one's not on that. Shh, guys. Shh. What was the one you just said?
Shrek or Treasure Planet?
Shrek.
Oh, that's tough. I
No,
think I'm gonna take Treasure Planet.
no, it's a tough one. I figured you would take that.
I suppose I could ask Shrek or Pirates. Let's do Shrek or the first two Pirates movies.
Well, the second Pirates movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. So clearly that one. I mean, both pirate movies are going over Shrek. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I watched both of them pretty recently, actually, like last week, and yes, both of them are above Shrek in my opinion. And I think that pretty much covers it.
Yeah,
Is there anything
really
you
all
could
the
think
all
of
the
that I'm
big
missing?
ones. No, because especially after Pirates, they kind of it's a shame really that they've kind of died out, that we haven't really seen them. It's crazy that I'm pretty sure they wrote The Lone Ranger with that Gore Verbinski directed.
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
they
and
did.
it's crazy that because that movie bombed so hard that you haven't seen Gore Verbinski or them really do anything anymore.
Yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense because
It's crazy.
just looking at this, a lot of their work seems to be with Disney.
Yeah.
Um, and The Lone Ranger was like, a really bad movie for Disney.
But it's insane that
Um,
after all the money they've made them between the Pirates movies, Aladdin, all of these movies, that literally just because the Lone Ranger didn't perform the way you guys hoped, they're done. Like, fuck off.
yeah.
But all right, so now we turn our attention to Jim's favorite portion of the week. Will the list manage to survive another week where we sit back now and give our final ratings?
I'm Roger Ebert. Been a scene from the best film of the decade. This is a great film.
Thank you for that setup, my man, Roger Ebert, everybody. And yes, it is now time for us to dive into our final ratings for the movie Shrek, Jim, for the movie Shrek.
Names are hard.
Names are hard, especially when you get to nighttime and
Dude,
daddy starts to get sleepy.
if I ever listen to an old episode, it's like pretty good bet that I'm gonna totally mispronounce or butcher an actor's name.
Oh yeah, we mispronounce shit all the time. But yes, we're driving into our final ratings for Shrek. As always, we each give our rating out of 5, and then we add them together for a rating out of 10 and see where it falls on the list of all the movies that we've done thus far here on the podcast, and see if this list survives another week without it giving Jim an embolism. So, Jim, final rating for the movie Shrek.
So this is where
Dude,
like
the way you contextualize, man, this is what I live for. Let me hear it.
this is where Rugrats is starting to sting a little bit. Like just on this week in particular, right? Because we have a movie that is also an animated movie. It is far superior to the Rugrats movie. Um, but like really at the end of the day, it's like pretty funny, but it's not really like anything earth shattering. So like I'm not gonna give it like a 4 or a 5, and like even a 3.5 sounds a little high. So like this would be prime real estate for like a 2.5 in my opinion. But now I'm sitting here and I'm saying, where is that going to put it in regards to like the Pokemon movie and Rugrats? So I don't know. I guess long story short, I'm just gonna stick with my gut. I'm gonna cross my fingers and I'm gonna say 3. I'm gonna say 3 out of 5.
All right, so you made me a little nervous there in the beginning when you started talking about 2.5s. I was like, that's you were talking great things about this movie throughout, and then all of a sudden you're throwing 2.5s out here. I was like, what? That's absurd. Especially when you started talking about Rugrats. I was like, I didn't think this movie was going to land anywhere near Rugrats. So third, I could take a 3 from you because that's going to bring us up a little high, because I think I'm probably going to go a little bit higher than you are
Okay.
here, because I am the inverse of you. While you're sitting there saying at the end of the day, it was a fun movie, but there was nothing really to write home about, that you can't give it anything higher than that. Um, when I had to turn to the Excel sheet before I watched this movie, because obviously this was one I hadn't watched in a while, so I wanted to see what I gave it as a kid before returning to this movie now. And young TJ gave this movie a perfect rating. So I was like, oh man, this is going to be an interesting rewatch. And you can sit and rest easy there, Jim. I did not give it the perfect 5 again this
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So this
I mean,
was a
I
movie
already
this
gave
time
it a 3. If you gave
where,
it a 5, that's all on you. That's
yeah, this was one where I watched it this time, and very much the same thing. I did still really enjoy it, and it is really funny. But this movie had, at the end of the day, something that you've mentioned a lot of times when we've talked about movies, is that the entire time I was watching this, it just made me want to watch Shrek 2.
yeah, yeah.
So this movie definitely suffered in the regards that it just made me want to watch the one that I love. So it didn't lend itself to as good of a rewatch as it used to when I was a kid. It still is
Yeah.
really funny, and a lot of the jokes do really land. But it does kind of
And you
sag in the
also
middle portion and towards the end. Yeah, what are you gonna say?
you also have the benefit, like when you originally rated it, Shrek 2 didn't exist, so you hadn't seen it yet. You know what I
This is
mean?
true. This is true. So the original 5-star rating was, back when this movie was so fresh and new, and you were like, dude, this is crazy. Before I even knew a world where Shrek 2 even existed. But I'm still going to give this one a relatively high rating. It's not going to get the 5, but it is still going to get 4 from me because while it does have
Okay.
those little things where it's not Shrek 2 to me, I still think this movie is a lot of fun. It's very enjoyable. It still is rewatchable. I can rewatch that movie again and still laugh at all of the jokes. The jokes lend itself to rewatch. They still land watching it every time. So this movie still is a really well made and fun animated movie. So I'm going to give it 4 stars from me. So 4 from me and 3 from you. It's good enough to put this movie at a 7 out of 10. And
Sure.
I think that's fair for this one.
Yeah, that's not bad. And
Yeah.
like I kind of want to like preface my 3 score by saying like if I give something a 3, that means I generally liked it. You know what I mean? Like to me that's not like a slap in the face at all. That's like, this was a pretty good movie, you know?
No. And I know that your 3 is a very good one for this. You're much more cautious in your star ratings, I feel like,
Yeah,
than I
yeah.
am.
I
Like
mean
you
like the
you
fact that I
really
opened with
reserve your
the
4s and 5s for really the top of the heap, whereas I feel like I'm a bit more relaxed in my 4s. I try to be harder in my 5s. I'm not always as great in it
yeah.
because as we're charting here along, we a new thing we want to also do is chart how many 5 stars each of us give. And right now, I've got one up on you, where you've so far saved your 1 5-star for Titanic, and I've
Oh,
given it for
you gave
Titanic
me
and
and
Gladiator.
Gladiator, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I mean
Which
that's
I
not
still think, yeah,
necessarily a
still
bad.
I think is fair. I think those 2 5s that I've given is fair. I was worried coming into this one, knowing that as a kid I gave this one 5, and I was like, "Fuck, man! If I still think this is a fiver, Jim is gonna roast me."
No, no, I would never roast you
No,
for
I
your
know,
score.
but I
I
know,
would
like,
just silently judge you.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I was like, if we're gonna be 14 episodes deep, and I've already given 3 5 stars, and one of them is Shrek, like it's gonna be very bold going forward here. The way I'm just like I'm throwing 5 stars out like Oprah, man. You get a 5 stars, and you get a 5 stars.
Yeah, and like I don't know, I feel like I should say like there's definitely a movie like Shrek that I would give 4 or maybe even 5 stars to, but it would need to hold up more than this one did for me, you know?
Yeah, and I knew I had to bump this one down a bit because if I'm talking that the whole time I'm watching this, and I'm like, it's not Shrek 2. Like, obviously, I can't be giving both of them. Like, I gotta watch how I'm star rating. If I'm like the whole time I'm watching Shrek, I'm like, it's not Shrek 2. And then now it'll be interesting to go back and watch Shrek 2 because yeah, I'm talking up how that's the go-to one for me, but I haven't watched Shrek 2 in forever either. So God knows how that one will go on a rewatch once we get up to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all right, so 7 out of 10 for Shrek
I'm
is
sorry.
good.
Did it tie with anything?
So yeah, so Shrek right now we're looking 7 out of 10 is gonna tie with Castaway and How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Ooh.
With 7 out of 10. So right now so the way we had it right now is How the Grinch was above Castaway. So to really settle ourselves in here, Jim, Castaway or Shrek?
Real quick, I'm gonna say
Gut reaction. Ah,
Castaway.
I also would pick Castaway.
Okay.
So we'll settle. That's an easy one. So we'll settle Shrek in right here at the bottom of the 7 pile. So it's going to sit in
Yeah.
at the number 6 spot, right behind Castaway and right ahead of Armageddon, which sits with a 6.5. So
All right. Yeah.
yeah, that's stomachable.
I think it's mostly intact. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a solid spot right there. And I feel like that 7 is going to end up being a very 021 that we're going to see a lot. I feel like 7 is going to be the median average that we're going to see for a lot of these movies.
Yeah, we'll definitely start to see like a distribution form. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense that if Rugrats is the lowest, it makes sense that 7 is where they would start to
You
pull up.
keep forgetting, Jim. Rugrats is not the lowest. The Perfect
Oh
Storm
wait,
is the lowest.
that's right. The Perfect Storm is justifiably lower than the
Yeah.
Rugrats.
The Perfect Storm is the lowest at 3.5, followed
Yeah,
then by the Rugrats with a 4.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's fair. We did it. I'm not
we
gonna
did it.
second guess it now.
Yeah. Yeah, so the average tends to be right now the 7 area, and we don't really float around to the top too often right now. We got our big one with Titanic at the perfect 10 and Gladiator at 9.5, but then other than that, nothing has really floated over, that's that 7 mark.
Yeah, no, and it'll be interesting to see when the next thing that really jumps a lot higher than that is, and what the next thing that's like in Perfect Storm Rugrats territory. I don't know. I'm enjoying this.
So it'll be interesting to see if next week's movie is going to hit up there. I'm gonna let you take some guesses as to next week's movie. I think it's definitely I think this one might be one that can definitely be in the running for towards the bottom of the heap.
So,
This
just
is
like full disclosure, I already know what it is. I already know what it is. It came up in a part that is probably not going to make it into this episode, and I am so I don't know. Disappointed is probably the right word. Like,
yes, the toughest part about
concerned.
going, yeah, the toughest part about going through these earlier ones is contextualizing how old we were at this time, because we have to remember we're only in 2001. We're 12 years old at this point. So we're
Yeah,
still watching, well, like we're getting a lot of really good movies in here, but you also have to remember we're also 12 years old. So we're also going to go to the movies and see movies like next week's movie, which is Dr. Dolittle 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's just the
Yeah.
movie that I at this point in my life I'm so glad they made, and I am gonna have to watch again, and I don't know, talk about, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, this will be an interesting one to go into because I don't think I've watched this movie since that day as a 12-year-old seeing it in theaters. I don't know if there was ever a reason after seeing it once to go back to it, but here we are now, and we're going to go back into it and rewatch Dr. Dolittle 2, and see with our 34-year-old eyes how that one holds up for us.
It'll be interesting for sure.
Definitely. But yeah, I think that's a safe bet to see that that might be one that could contend for one of the lower positions here in this list, or who knows, we could watch it and it ends up surprising us, Jim. We don't know. I remember legit zero about that movie. So it is
Yeah, me
definitely, it's
too.
almost like going in blind again, because the only thing I remember about this movie is that Eddie Murphy is in it and that he can talk to animals.
Yeah, if I mean, as we're talking about this, there's like a little glimmer of hope that has arisen deep within me that says maybe I'll watch this and I'll enjoy it. And I guess
Maybe it
we'll see what happens.
maybe it could surprise us and be a cute little family movie, but don't get your hopes
Yeah.
up. But as always, that will do it for all of us here at Front Row Cinema in this great showing. Jim, do you have anything to leave the people with this week?
Uh, nah. I think we played a lot of the good Shrek clips. I'm gonna leave the people with see ya.
That'll work. That'll work. No bits of wisdom or good soundboards for you this
Yeah,
week. Jim is just
yeah.
giving you the good old goodbye, and I'll give
This
you the
is
sound off
this is the
as
segment on
always.
the podcast I like to call phoning it in.
But Jim, they always think you're so sincere. But this is our sign off as always, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you at the movies.